The House Transportation Committee for January 24th, 2024 is now in session. Clerk, please call the roll, ma'am.
Representatives Carr, Darby, Glenn, Harris, Hazelwood, Howell, Marsh, Pearson, Russell, Sherrill, Towns, Vital, Wright, and Chairman Woodson.
Here.
Sir, you've got a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Before we get started, any personal orders or announcements from members of the committee? Seeing none, first thing I'd like to do is welcome a new member to our subcommittee, Representative Justin Pearson from the Shelby County. Welcome, Justin. Glad to have you. Also, I want to introduce our staff. Jeremy Maxwell is the committee research analyst and a big asset to our work. I couldn't do it without you there, Jeremy. Joel Hay is our committee legal counsel. Joel, good to have you. And of course, the employee of the year for last year, the House Employee of the Year, amazing, Amanda Conway, our committee assistant. Camille Dowdy is our committee intern for the year. Where are you, ma'am? Okay. And you go to school where? UT Martin. Okay, good. Good to have you here. Our clerks are Gabby Hamada, and our sergeant at arms is Johnny McDonald. Good to have you here. I would like to take a moment to recognize our legislative liaisons from the Department of Safety and the Department of Transportation. If each one of them would come forward and introduce yourself, because we will be seeing you guys a lot this year. So we'll let TDOT go first, okay? And please state your name and your position, and you don't have to have a seat. You could just stand up there at the podium if you like.
Good. Jay Klein. I've got the pleasure of serving as the Director of Legislation for TDOT. Always enjoy working with you all and excited to be a resource for the committee.
Thank
And,
you, Jay.
and if anyone doesn't have my contact info or anything like that, just always happy to share and be a resource to you all.
And I'm
Liz?
Liz Ashford. I serve as the Assistant Director of Legislation for TDOT. So anything y'all need, please let me know.
Well, thank you. And, we could not do this without y'all, and we appreciate what all you do for us. Also, I'd like to ask the Department of Safety, Ben, would you come up and introduce yourself?
I'm going to sit down too. Ben Voitis, pleasure to serve as a legislative liaison for the Department of Safety. Happy to come to this committee quite often and answer any questions everyone may have. Happy to be here.
Good. And also, left out the money folks. With the Department of Revenue liaisons, please come forward and introduce themselves.
Thank you, Chairman. Logan Hess, Director of Legislation for the Department of Revenue. As always, happy to be here.
Good to have you. Ma'am?
Autumn Cole, Legislative Liaison for the Department of Revenue. Happy to be here and happy to help the committee with whatever I can,
Okay, we appreciate it. We're going to need y'all. Thank you very
Autumn.
much.
like the season.
Sorry. Okay. Okay. Let me just go over a couple of the rules for the committee. Pretty much the same as last year, but just I want to reiterate them. If the bill sponsor wants a third-party testimony or someone is interested in testifying on a bill, they must first notify my office 24 hours in advance. Presentation materials must also be sent 24 hours in advance. A roll call vote can be requested when the bill sponsor begins their presentation. Once the chair calls for the vote, it's too late unless 3 members of the committee raise their hands and request a roll call vote. House rules do not allow live video streaming by members or staff while in the committee. A bill can now be calendared 3 times. If it is calendared and we run out of time and do not get to the bill, it will not be counted against the presenter and will be heard on the next regular calendar. We will not be providing physical copies of calendars for the members. If you like a paper copy, please have your office print them for you. All calendars will be on the dashboard on your iPads. Bills to this committee must be placed on notice by 3:30 p.m. on Wednesdays and can be done using your member portal on your iPad or desktop. Amendments must be filed by 10 a.m. on Tuesday prior to our meeting. Any comments? Okay, seeing none, we are now ready to hear our first bill. Item number 1, House Bill 1648 by the distinguished gentleman from Williamson County, the part of Williamson County that has the only heated roads in our county. Representative McCalman, you are recognized. We have a motion and second. A bill is properly before us. Please give a brief description of your bill, sir.
Thank you to my dear friend, Chairman Whitson and committee. I would have certainly loved those heated streets last week. I think they forgot to turn them on. So, members, House Bill 1648, kind of a simple bill, but not really. Right now, there is no process in the state of Tennessee for tow yards, salvage auctions, anybody. If a car is, for all intents and purposes, abandoned by the owner and the insurance company has no interest in said vehicle, the tow company, the salvage yard, is basically tasked with finding a way to get that car off their property. They can't do anything with it. What this bill does is it establishes a policy and to allow the salvage company to take possession of said vehicle. It requires a certified mailing be sent out. 2 weeks go by, they have to send another set of certified mailings out to all interested parties, so lien holder, owners and record. If after about 4 weeks, the owner has not notified that they're coming to pick it up, the insurance company has no interest in it, the tow yard can apply for a salvage title in their name, take possession of the vehicle, and dispose of it. And with that, I stand ready for questions.
Representative Pearson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for the bill. I was wondering if there was any change. I'm looking at, I guess it's page 2 of this. It's section 1.3. If the owner or lien holder of the vehicle does not pick up the vehicle within 30 days of the date on which the first notice was sent to the owner or a lien holder in accordance with subdivision, yada, yada. Is there a way to change that from 30 days to 60 days? The reason that I would ask for that amendment, I did some work in working with some property and landowners who were given 30 days before their property could be taken. by a corporate entity. And you can have a situation where, although a certified mail, someone signed for it, but it may not be that individual. Or you get a situation like we have now with weather or other things that make that 30 days into a little bit shorter of a period of time. And so just providing just ample opportunity for people, if it is their will, to get their property back, to have the chance to do so.
Yes, sponsor.
So this is kind of a different situation. This is dealing with a vehicle that's been, for all intents and purposes, it's been wrecked. It's been brought to a salvage yard. It's been brought to a tow yard, a body shop. The insurance company has denied the claim, said, we're not paying for this. We have no interest in it. Tell the owner to come pick it up. These are cars that, frankly, very rarely do the owners come back. Most of them don't have liens on them. This is essentially just allowing the company who's left holding the bag on this car to get it off their property so they can reclaim that space. It's not dealing with, private property of an old farm or anything like that. This is a tow yard. This is a salvage auction.
No, I definitely understand that folks might not want it back, but just to give a little bit more time is kind of what I would think and what I would consider. Thank you, sponsor. Thank you.
Anything else, Representative Pearson?
No. thank you,
Okay, thank you. Representative Glenn, you're next on the list. You recognize, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for this bill. I actually have a friend who owns a tow company, and that is a problem that he runs into. You look in his backyard and you see all these cars that belong to soldiers in Fort Campbell who never came to pick them up, and so eventually they have to do something with them. So I think it's a very good bill. Excuse me, but I do have one question. So, and because I do represent a military town. Is there a process, let's say the soldier, something happened, the car goes to the tow yard and he or she deploys before that 30 days or before the insurance can total it out or whatever the case may be. There's really no way for them to get a certified mail, right? So do you have anything in place to protect that? To where, again, the soldier deploys, there's no way for him to get certified mail, especially not within a 30-day process. So is there anything in place just to protect a service member who may be deployed before that process is complete?
So generally speaking, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Generally speaking, these are vehicles that the insurance company and the owner have already been involved with. The insurance company has told the owner, hey, you need to go pick up this car. And the salvage auction, the tow company, whoever it may be, is not going to begin that process unless the insurance company has said, hey, we've spoken to the owner. They know we've denied the claim. They need to come pick it up, begin that process. And so it's not just, hey, we're sending out your mail, where there's specific instructions and a process they have to follow before they can just acquire a title to that vehicle.
Yes, Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I got that, and I totally understand it. Again, I have a friend who actually owns one, and so I do understand the challenges. I'm just afraid that, again, even though, because we know the insurance process can sometimes be lengthy, and, God forbid something happens 10 days before a service member is due to deploy. By the time the insurance company has called, by the time the insurance company calls or says, hey, come pick this vehicle up, because it's taken 20 days for them to decide that they're going to total out the vehicle or whatever the case may be. That's my only concern. It's is there a process to ensure that a service member who is deployed has an opportunity to, the vehicle is not taken off from under them without them actually really having an opportunity, because being deployed, the mail doesn't work overnight. It really doesn't. So that's all I wanted to know. I'm still going to vote for the bill. I just wanted to know if there was a process for that.
Yes, sponsor and Representative Glenn too. That soldier could incur storage fees too the whole time they're gone. So it may be ended up more worth or cost more than the worth of the damaged car too. So that it kind of in some ways helps that soldier out too by disposing of it and then incur a storage fee for a long term. But I would ask the sponsor, just take a look at that before we get to if it passes out today and gets to the next committee or full committee.
Sure thing. Thank you.
Representative Glenn, anything else, sir? Okay, thank you. Good points. Next up, I have Representative Harris. You're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. So I used to work in insurance claims, and so we used to deal with this on a regular basis. This would be something that would be good for a lot of the auctioneer storage units and everywhere else. But with that being said, oftentimes people have this belief that when their vehicle comes into the salvage unit that, oh, I don't want to use my insurance, so I'm going to wait to utilize the other person's insurance. That can take a while. We got to wait for the police report to finally make it there to the insurance company for them to actually make a decision. Your insurance company has not yet technically denied it or has denied it and said, hey, we're not taking care of this, but you may feel, oh, I can still get it taken care of by the other carrier. And so that usually holds up even more time. Then you got to wait on the lien holder. There is typically an insurance company, we could make a call and get a 14-day, 10-day payoff, whichever one, but it's not always the case for, that's not going to happen. That is not going to happen or change for the tow yards. That's not going to change. Even if we change this law, the lien holders are going to be like, well, we're not going to hold off and give you the total number if there's a payoff. Even if they do, they're going to mail that letter to you. And if they mail it, that's going to take even more time. Would you entertain possibly doing just 3 months so that way people can have an opportunity to get through this process, both the insurance company, the lien holders, of making sure that it gets done? 2 consecutive 14-day periods just isn't going to be a doable thing. We're going to end up being back here making another change. But it's a good law. It's a good bill, definitely something that's needed because there's a lot of vehicles just sitting there. And the second question was, as far as when they get a salvage lien-free title, will then they be able to benefit from the value of that vehicle?
Sponsor.
Thanks, Chairman. So to the first point, if there's a lien on the vehicle, generally what happens is the lien holder will respond and say, we don't want it either, or they'll send somebody to come pick it up, or they'll turn around and say, well, we're taking ownership of it. We own it. We have legal right on it. We'll sell it, or we'll sell it on our own accord. In the instances where the lien holder says, we don't want it, that's considered, at that point, they've relinquished their lien. As far to your second point, if you can re-clarify that second question, sir.
Yeah, so if it's a lien-free salvage certificate of title, when they get possession of the vehicle, then if they are now in ownership of the vehicle, can they then sell the vehicle, make money off of it, profit from that? That's them getting the actual salvage of the vehicle. Or are they just put in a position to be able to take the vehicle and destroy it and not have to pay, have to incur any additional costs? They're not making any money is what I'm asking.
Yeah, and I'd like to remind members to wait to be recognized before you respond so we can stay correct. Okay, go ahead, sponsor.
So the answer is yes, they can sell it, but realistically they could sell it or they could crush it. They could dispose of it however they wish to do so. Oftentimes they've incurred a cost on these vehicles. They've had to store it. It's taken up space. They've had to be the one to go pick it up. They've had to be the one to take physical inventory of it. They've done all the work. In order for them to reclaim their cost, yes, they would be allowed to sell it.
Yes, Representative.
And then what relief would there be for, say an individual has a auto accident, vehicle's damaged, they end up incapacitated and can't get to the process of the insurance piece. Insurance company still denies it because they have no knowledge of it, obviously. What happens then at that point?
This is only happening, this vehicle is not just going to magically show up at at the salvage yard. I mean, it's the insurance company said, hey, and in this process, you being an insurance adjuster in prior life, you would make a claim, you'd submit a claim to a salvage yard to come say, hey, go over to ABC Body Shop, pick up the car. Here's our claim number for it. Give us your lot number back. They're not beginning this process until they've been given specific instructions from the insurance company saying, we have no interest in this vehicle. We've denied the claim. Tell the owner to come get it. And there's oftentimes too, when the owner will say, hey, I do want this vehicle back. And it's on them to come pick it up, and they would pay whatever storage fees are associated with it. And they can have their car. It's their car. This is either we have been told by the owner, the company's been told by the owner, we don't want the vehicle, or the owner's just completely non-responsive. The insurance company, who the salvage yards are working for, they are their customer. They're being directed to take possession of it. They don't want it anymore. Get rid of it. So,
Representative Harris?
And then also, sponsor, would this play a part for, say, for instance, in Memphis, we have our city lot for the police. Do that take place in any way?
Sponsor?
No, usually those tow yards will have a lien process fee that they can go through. This is more specifically for acquiring a salvage title on a wrecked vehicle that has been told by the insurance company. This isn't dealing with an impound lot, for instance, where it's not dealing with that. This is a salvage yard that an insurance company has sent this wrecked car to, assuming that they were going to process a claim. And the insurance company right now, they process it into whatever insurance company's name it is. This is only speaking to in the instance where the insurance company says we don't want it, the owner's being non-responsive, or said we don't want it. It allows this salvage yard the ability to get rid of this vehicle because it is taking up space, and the space is valuable. So,
Representative Harris?
That's it. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Representative Towns, you're recognized, sir.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Sponsor, thank you as well. Interesting arguments that I've heard from my colleagues here. It's seemingly that people like the bill, but are looking for additional time to ensure that we don't mess up, especially with the veteran. The veteran piece concerns me. Is there a surrogate that can operate for the veterans and that they can designate themselves to take care of business for them in the event they get caught in that window?
Sponsor?
thank you, Chairman. Yes, anybody who's got power of attorney for that veteran can act on their behalf and come pick up the vehicle for them if they did indeed want that vehicle.
Representative Towns?
Okay, so let's take the power of attorney off the table. What about if I sent something certified, I sent this gentleman down to the car lot with a certified letter, document saying he could, take control of the car for me. I'm being deployed, da, 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 da. Would that work as well?
Sponsor?
Notarized, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I mean that if it's notarized and you've designated them as your representative, I mean that for all intents and purposes, that's a power of attorney. They are legally authorized to operate on your behalf. So I mean, if you had Speaker Marsh go down to pick up your car, which is awfully nice of him, but and because you're out of country, you're laid up with two broken legs and you can't get out. Anybody who you've designated with legal power to act on your behalf would be able to do that.
Representative Towns?
Let's say the car does have a lien on it. Okay, where are we at that point? I owe $3,000 on the car, and whoever owns the car, technically, obviously, they want the car, they want their money. How does that work?
Sponsor?
So generally, in my experience, and full disclosure, I have experience in the salvage auction business. What would happen is the same letter goes out to the owner that goes out to the lien holder. And I think it was to Representative Pearson's prior question on that. The lien holder would also be notified, and in often cases, if the lien holder wanted the vehicle, they would call up said auction and say, hey, we're coming to get that car. We have a legal interest. We have a financial interest in it. That's our car. The owner may not want it, but we still do. So they have a legal right to that car. So this is if they say we're coming to get it, it's theirs. They show up, they pay whatever storage has been incurred. It's theirs to do with this they want. This is now in the event that they say, we don't want it. It's a 1973 Pinto. We don't want this car anymore. Well, that may be a classic car now. So I mean, that may be worth value, but Chairman Whitson saying, don't dog on the Pintos.
Representative Towns. I'm sorry. Sponsor, were you finished?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Representative Towns.
So with that, do they get the same 30 days or they get a little bit of additional time because they're a third party that's in it, a financial third party that's involved in it? So will they get a little bit more time? How would that work?
Sponsor.
The 30-day period applies because the mailings are sent out on the same day to the same, it's operating at the same rate. So they're being notified at the same time as the owner, the legal owner.
Representative Towns.
Now, finally, maybe not, but this is the deal where an insurance company, when that car is on the lot, are they paying storage fees? Who's paying the storage? If they're not paying the storage, how would they call the lot and tell the people they're not going to do thus and so? They're not paying the storage and they're not going to fix it. So,
Sponsor.
So generally what happens at one of these salvage auctions, the insurance company pays a fee to that auction to sell that vehicle on their behalf. That fee will allow them to process title into the insurance company's name. Say you're with Farmers Insurance and you wreck your car, Farmers writes you a check. If they honor the claim, Farmers now owns that car. And they tell whatever insurance auction, we need to process title into our name. This is a claim number. The auction company will do that on their behalf, and they're paid to auction that vehicle off to the highest bidder. This is in an instance where the insurance company again is saying, we don't want it, we have no interest in it. We thought we were going to be paying on it. For whatever reason, we are now denying the claim. We're removing ourselves from the equation. At that point, the auction oftentimes isn't getting any type of recompense for it. They may get paid for the tow in, but they're not getting any type of sale fee. They're not making any commissions on it. So the storage would generally begin after the point where the insurance company says, we don't want it.
Representative Towns.
and I know the valuable space that because it's just like cars. If you sell cars on the car lot, you got to have some space. You got to move the old ones out to get the ones in. It's very valuable. That little spot is very, very, very precious real estate in terms of finances. I get it. But you're saying, and maybe I misunderstood, that the insurance company still owns the car? They own the car?
Sponsor.
I'm lost there. I thought I heard you say that they own it.
If the insurance company has paid you out for your vehicle and they've totaled the car, they've essentially purchased that vehicle from you, and they are
Okay.
going to process title into their name, into Farmers Insurance name, or whatever insurance company you're with, and they're going to sell it on their behalf.
Representative Towns.
So why would I receive a notice then if I don't own it anymore? Okay.
Sponsor.
This is an instance where the insurance company has not paid you. They said, we're not going to pay you. We're denying your claim.
Got it. Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Okay, thank
you,
you.
sir.
Next up, I have Chairman Howell. You're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is not unlike a situation we had about 3 years ago in another industry concerning storage units. I have several in my district, people who own storage units, and same situation, people would neglect or refuse to pay their storage fee every month. And they would leave town, last known address. They'd send a certified letter, come back, nobody knew where they were. And of course, the owner is stuck with a storage unit full of junk that he doesn't want, but he's not getting any money off of his storage. So the legislature saw fit to pass a bill to include digital notification and email. And in talking to my constituents, what they found was that email usually works, because even if it's a service person or whoever, if they leave the country, they usually keep their same email address. So if they're notified by email or digital, then they have the opportunity to take action to get somebody to work on their behalf while they're overseas. I would offer that as a suggestion. If it's not in the bill, maybe if it passes today, you could bring that to full.
Sponsor.
Thank you, Chairman Howell.
Chairman Howell, is it? Okay, next up, I have Chairman Carr. You're recognized, sir.
Hi, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Oh, you passed? Okay. Next up, round two, I have Representative Pearson. You're recognized, sir.
Thank you. And I really love that suggestion of the digital notification as well, because you can have ready receipts. And so that seems like a really good idea. I just want to know, related to the timing, why is it 30 days versus 60 versus 90? Because I believe that, and I understand the process here, right? The insurance company has decided they're not going to pay, right? The owner of the vehicle, then it's not going to be totaled. The owner of the vehicle has a responsibility to come and get their car from X company's lot, right? I do understand that. But the truncation of time, right? 30 days, it may sound like a lot, seem like a lot, but it really isn't that much time. And so can you explain why you're hesitant, at least right now, to increase the amount of time to allow for folks who are part of that minority, as you've articulated, who want to get their vehicle back, who want to get the money together to get their car back? Like, why are you opposed to increasing the amount of time that they would be allowed to do that?
Sponsor?
1 second, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Sponsor?
So the 30 days is in other sections and statutes, and this is not unsimilar to other states and how they process these vehicles, say in Texas, for instance. So it's not an uncommon timeline, and nor is it inconsistent with other statutes dealing with similar issues.
Representative Pierce?
Yeah, but Tennessee's better than Texas. And so I think,
I second that.
so I think it would be worthwhile before bringing this to full committee to consider increasing the amount of time that we allow Tennesseans who would like to get access to their vehicle back, the opportunity to do so. And while I understand it might be in other statutes that it is 30 days, just being considerate of, I think, some of the feedback that we've heard, whether it be military service people, folks who really are trying to piece together the money to potentially to cover the cost of getting their vehicle back. I think it's important that we at least attempt to have some flexibility here.
Sponsor?
Thank you for that. I can certainly understand the opinion. And I guess the last thing I would say is Texas was founded by Tennessee. So
What? Okay. Representative Pierce?
Thank you,
Okay.
Chairman.
Representative Glenn, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And again, sponsor, I'm going to vote for the bill, so don't take my questioning as I'm against the bill. I just want to make sure that, again, I have a friend who actually owns a salvage company, and they, and this is what they do, and they do it in a military town. And what I'm trying to make sure is that they don't come back and get sued over, something small in the language. You understand what I'm saying? So when you spoke of the power of attorney that they can use, just keep in mind there's such thing as a limited power of attorney. So power of attorney doesn't mean that someone can just come do anything on behalf of the soldier, right? That limited, means that they only, the limited power of attorney gives them power of attorney to do certain things. So just put that in, to think about that. Chairman Howell mentioned the electronic piece, which is actually a very good idea. So I do think that is a very good viable option to have in the bill as that piece that could give that, especially in certain circumstances, type leadway. So that's all I had.
Sponsor?
thank you for that, sir.
Representative Glenn, is that, okay, thank you. Okay, we have a question on the bill. Members, we're now ready to vote on House Bill 1648. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Bill moves on to Transportation Full Committee.
Thank you, members and committee.
Okay, thank you, members, for that good discussion on the House bill we just heard. Next up, I have item number 2. I have a motion and a second on House Bill 598 by the distinguished gentleman from Davidson County and Flat Rock, Tennessee. You're recognized.
That's right,
Representative
Mr. Chairman. And let me say, in 12 years, this is the friendliest committee I think I've ever been in front of. But anyhow,
working the.
we haven't voted yet. So, Mr. Chairman, if I could, so this bill would create a Office of Rail and Public Transportation within the Department of Transportation. TASR completed a study that I know this subcommittee, being the Transportation Subcommittee, is very familiar with, looking at the expansion of passenger rail. And there were several different recommendations that came out of that TASR study. So I've actually filed a bill today that would include all of those TASR recommendations. This was one of the recommendations. So I've had some good conversations with the Department of Transportation, who I think wants to see, will speak for them, but they like the thought process, and I'll say that, of having a little bit more dedication and personnel tasked with public transit and rail here in the state. If you look at the other states, I know we just had a conversation about Texas, and actually Texas was one of the states that was in the commissioner's slides yesterday. There were other states, Virginia, North Carolina. Those states have a dedicated agency or office specific to passenger rail. And if we really want to get serious as a state of expanding passenger rail, remind the committee, Nashville, which I represent, is the third largest city in the United States without passenger rail. Vegas is ahead of us. Columbus is ahead of us. They are both on track to get passenger rail service. So we'll be number one. Then you have Memphis does have passenger rail, but it's very limited, right? We just have the line that runs north and south to Chicago and New Orleans, but there's no line running east and west. Knoxville, another one of the largest, I think, top 10 cities without passenger rail, and then even Chattanooga. So fortunately, those three cities that I just referenced have been included and awarded federal funds to study passenger rail. But really, it's going to take the state and us as partners to look at expanding that. Because if you look at the state of Tennessee, the map of the Tennessee, when you have passenger rail, there's basically a giant hole in Tennessee. With the exception of Memphis, we don't have anything. And, bringing this to our state is vitally important. It would be beneficial to our economic development, to alleviating. I mean, we saw and heard the testimony yesterday. We can't build our way and certainly can't fund our way out of this crisis that we're facing in terms of congestion. And so this is a really, in my view, attractive alternative to increase public transit and passenger rail service in the state of Tennessee. So I'm also hopeful, I want to add, leave Knoxville out, or the Bristol. Bristol actually is in talks to have the line from Virginia connect all the way into Bristol. And then the hope is eventually to connect the line from Chattanooga to Knoxville to have a very robust passenger rail service. So if we're serious about getting that done, and we have a very unique, maybe once in a generation opportunity to do that with the infrastructure bill that passed, to tap into those funds and get serious about passenger rail in the state of Tennessee. Because I can tell you, I hear from a lot of your constituents, people are very excited about it. I'm very, as you know, a big proponent of passenger rail in our state, but it's a topic that gets Tennesseans excited and they want to see it. I've even had conversations with the governor directly about this. So it's important to me. But with that all being said, Mr. Chairman, what I'd like to do is take this bill off notice. I'm going to work on my other bill. I'm happy to answer any questions that folks might have. Let this still be in the system. So if we can't, look at it, all those task recommendations, I think this is probably the most important one, to have this dedicated office. And then also, I know there's from some of my colleagues on the Senate side, there's a lot of excitement about the Office of Passenger Rail, specifically for those cities I mentioned, including Bristol. The senator that represents Bristol is excited about this legislation. So I'm happy to answer any questions, and then I'll be taking this off notice.
Well, thank you, Chairman, or Representative Powell, and I do appreciate your enthusiasm for this. I actually caught a train when I was a young kid from Union Station to Birmingham, Alabama, and it was quite an adventure back in the day. And I lived in Germany for 3 years, and passenger rail was essential to that country's transportation and their issues they have. And but I do appreciate you working with TDOT, and let's see where we can get to this and make it a win-win for everybody. And with that, Representative Towns, you were first up, sir.
Mr. Chairman, thank you again. Here again, Chairman Powell, we've talked about this, and I'm 100% in. I hate to see it being taken off notice, but we want it to be right when it's done. However, people think about this right now. Our main source of transportation is going to be on the highway with a car or a truck, or a pickup truck or a motorcycle. When something happens, just look at this when we're traveling back and forth. When there's a little minor accident or major accident, we are backed up all over the place. We are totally backed up. Now, if there's a natural disaster, you have to think about where we are in Memphis and the faults and things that could possibly happen here. How do you get the people out? That's the reason I've been a proponent of having that third bridge down there. How do we move the masses of human beings from point A to a safe place. Now, back in the day, like you, Mr. Chairman, when I first got on the train, it was my mom put me on a train with the family. We went somewhere, and it was just a beautiful thing. But it's like when we come up with something new, we let the old go. Okay, we should always have 2 or 3 modes: a primary, secondary, and a tertiary way of doing things. 1 is nothing. 2 is 1. So if we have only 1 mode of transportation, something happens, you don't have anything. But if you have 2, at least you have 1. So it's something that we need to look at. And the thing of it is, it's never going to get any cheaper to do it. We got to do it. We need to do it. Okay. We got to get up off the can, and we need to get this transportation system right in our state. It needs to be done across the country. There ought to be transportation, train all across this country today. We ought to have it. We had it at one time, but we let it go. So I want you to keep pushing it. Tell you want to participate in it, sign on to it, but it's something that we really must do. Just how it is.
Thank you.
Sponsor?
Thank you for those comments, and I agree.
Okay, and next up on my list is Chairman Howell. You're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to the sponsor, thank you for your passion for this. It's something that's been on my heart and mind for a long, ever since I've been chairman of transportation. We've had these discussions. I don't know if you were on the committee when we had Amtrak actually come and do a presentation, and it got a lot of excitement around the state. Ended up, we didn't really have a plan. And we were told that we'd have a big bill of several $1 million recurring to the state. But that didn't dampen the enthusiasm for trying to do something, because we know we have to. I mean, we're growing. I think we're one of the fastest growing states by population in the country. So we have to do this, and all you have to do to determine that is get out on I-25 here at 7:30 in the morning. We have to do something. But I wanted to make a distinction here between, are you making a distinction between passenger service and commuter service as far as rail?
Sponsor?
So that's a great question, Chairman. Those two clearly have to work hand in hand, right? So a lot of the same tracks would be shared. That would be part of the discussion. So it's very important that we take in all aspects of rail into that. And so that's one benefit there, is you would actually have, that all under one purview, somebody sort of dedicated, focused on that. And I'll just add, I appreciate your comments. As you often know, as I know that you've recognized in your career, you've got to task somebody with something, or it just will never get done.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think it's important to have that dedicated office that really focuses on this, to make sure that we explore all options to improve our not just passenger freight service, but also even commercial commuter.
Chairman?
Thanks, Chairman. I agree completely. And I'm wanted the committee to know that I've had recent conversations with TDOT, the commissioner, and several staff members, and they are very much interested in. I haven't found anybody at TDOT's opposed to commuter service or rail service. They're all very much involved in wanting to do it, and they also have responded to the TASA report, and they've been studying it now for quite some time. And I think if we could work together with them, which I think you've already had some discussion, and find a framework of how we can plan for long range, because this isn't going to be something that happens overnight. We're going to have to plan it and plan it correctly, or we'll mess it up.
Right.
That's just the way government is. So I appreciate your effort. I appreciate your passion, and I would ask that let's continue to work with TDOT, and let's see if we can make something happen.
Right.
Thank you.
Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Howell. Sponsor, any comment?
No, I appreciate that, and I want to keep those conversations going. And as it comes to money and tapping into those, if only we knew the chair of finance, then we could have those conversations too.
Next up on my list, I have Vice Chair Vital. Sir, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and sponsor, I appreciate you bringing this. I am intrigued. There's a lot of discussion about public transportation and rail specifically, although commuter is really the desperate need for so many, especially in the workforce, to get to our large industrial plants. And so I appreciate you getting this discussion going. I know in our community in Chattanooga, recently we received a federal grant to look at this. I also look at the Department of Transportation and want to make sure that we don't duplicate services or functions that are already performing, because it is a Department of Transportation, not a Department of just roads. And so the integration of public transportation along with our airports, waterways, and roads needs to be integrated as we look at plans for the future and moving our population across the state. So thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Sponsor?
And if I could, I agree 100%. I do think the states that, if you really closely look at the states who have been most successful in expanding their robust transit options, specifically with rail, have this dedicated office, such as Virginia and North Carolina. In fact, those individuals came and testified in front of our TASER committee, and I think have also spoken in front of this committee in the past. But yeah, we want to ultimately do this right with the Department of Transportation, and I think we're headed in a positive direction as far as that's concerned. So thank you for your comments, and I'm all for the line from Chattanooga to Nashville.
Thank you, sponsor. Next up, I have Representative Pearson. You're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, sponsor, for this bill. Can you elaborate Section 1A, where you talk about it's in the public interest to ensure that passenger and freight rail and public transportation are for participants in the multimodal system to reduce energy consumption, congestion, and air pollution, to enhance the environment, to support economic development, and to ensure the efficient movement of goods and people? Those are all very big and very good ideas. And as a person who's done a lot of work in climate and environmental justice, I know that having rail as an alternative, particularly in communities, particularly Black communities that have a lot of highways through them, where we're getting a lot of pollution, this could really help, particularly commuter rail, as the chairman mentioned before. So can you elaborate more on the need and why this has to be prioritized?
Sponsor?
Sure. And I agree 100%. I appreciate that. And you specifically referencing that. As you know, when you can have modes of transportation where you have more people together that are traveling, you're going to reduce the number. First of all, you think about a train. You have more people on those trains than basically, so it takes up less space. It takes less power than all the power combined, those individual cars that are transporting people. So it does end up providing significant savings, both from an energy standpoint, but it's also just clearly a lot more efficient. And so that is one great outcome that you have here. You also look at making it so that Tennesseans, is your my colleague here and your colleague from Shelby County pointed out, when you have the ability for people to have various modes of transportation, when there are situations like an ice storm where cars can't make it on the roads and you have the passenger rail option, that can be very beneficial. And so that's also a very strong consideration. So, my hope is that, if you look at just the travel across the state, but you look at travel within our own communities, what's happened is, when I talk about Virginia has worked on these initiatives to expand passenger rail service across the state, but also within their own communities. You've seen an expansion of mass transit because people are exposed to that, and they want to see more of it in their communities. So that's something that's greatly needed in the city I represent, is more options for travel. I'm sure some of you commute from your communities to Nashville, and sometimes probably your drive from the Nashville line into the Capitol is longer than the rest of your commute. So you witness how bad it is here. And so we've got to look at all forms of transportation, but certainly things that we can do to be positive outcomes for the environment are very important.
Representative Pearson.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And I just love how many positive comments folks are giving here on the committee about the need to prioritize passenger rail, the need to prioritize mass transit as a reality. If our state is going to grow economically, if it's going to grow in population, this has to be something that is prioritized. One of the things that I was kind of struck by, not in your legislation, but in the fiscal note for this, was an increase in expenditures of 164,000 for one director, as it said in statute, the way it's written. And so it's something to look back on. It's only allowing for one director to be hired. You probably need a couple people who work on this if it is a department, but then there would be recurring costs of exceeding over $100 million in state expenditures. And it doesn't articulate why that would be. I don't know which other departments our state has that are $100 million plus, or why this one would be that in particular. And I've looked through it, but that was something that was curious to me. And so more information on these other departments across the country that are doing this well, and really what those costs are, I think could help us to have a better sense of actually what this might actually cost our state.
Sponsor?
And I appreciate that. And some of what we don't account for too is some of the smaller expenditures that we can make as a state that end up having a lot more positive fiscal impact. I know as Chairman Vital talked about economic development.
Right.
Certainly, as we see, I know different projects that are proposed that I've heard about in his community. I mean, there is not the workforce there. So we're going to need the ability to bring people in to fill those jobs. And having this option for mass transit is very important. We have a challenge here in my city where parking costs have risen and I see a lot of folks shaking their head because you are paying those parking costs a lot of times. But we're lucky to have a garage here where we can park for free. But for a lot of Nashvillians who travel into work, literally their parking fee eats up the majority of their paycheck. And so, having these options for mass transit can help a lot of different people, help the workforce. I mean, if you look at the total economic benefit of the Nashville to Atlanta line, which would run through Chattanooga, it'd stop in Murfreesboro, Tullahoma, it'd be a very robust line. It's not just going to stop in those three cities, but communities along the way would actually even have to go through Alabama at some point. The economic benefit for that is hundreds of millions of dollars.
Representative?
Thank you so much, sponsor. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. And next on my list, I have Chair Lady Hazelwood. Oh, and I would like to add first regarding parking lots, it's not so much the fee, it's the daggum QR codes that keeps me from using them. Chair Lady Hazelwood, she passes. Next up, I have Representative Towns.
Chairman, thank you. Look, ladies and gentlemen, there are no downsides to this discussion as it relates to transportation. All the members have talked about it. There's nothing but upside to this. Chairman Howell talked about a moment ago all the good stuff that transportation is looking at and maybe considering attaching to good report. What I'm apprehensive about is that we wait too long. Okay. Out of mind, out of sight. We have a lot of things we're competing with that's competing for our attention. We got to get the transportation piece done and we got to get it right. Okay. We need to do it. And what I emphatically have to stress is that it's going to get higher in cost. It's going to cost more. 5 years down the road, okay, what will it cost compared to 2 years down the road? It costs more. One of the last figures that I got just in laying the road was $1 million a mile to lay road. Now that blows my mind. So 200 miles, $200 million, that was then. That was the cost I was told then. It's not going to get any cheaper. Now the projection for your city right now, what's the MSA in your city right now? What is the MSA? What is it? $1 million and what?
Sponsor?
Okay. How would you have to do the
It probably in the time it take me to answer, it went up 7 or 8 people. So that's how much
you're
it
recognized.
This is the deal. This is what I've heard here about 2 months ago. There are going to be 2 million people in Nashville proper in about 5 years. They have it projected out 5 million people in about 10 years. That's what was on the news that I heard. Oh, that's a lot of humanity. Okay, going back and forth. Okay. Now, while all the members here, especially the younger members here, we may be able to afford a helicopter. You know what I mean? But everybody else is going to be on the highway. Okay. So we got to get it right. We got to do something to get this transportation piece right. You don't leave here around 2:30, 2:45 going anywhere. It's gridlock. So I try to avoid it. So we have to do it, but I just don't want us to put it out of sight, out of mind, and we don't get back to it, and then the cost is going up. You know, when the cost goes extremely high, it's like the cross on Dracula. Everybody just, hey, they don't want to deal with it. So we need to keep it on the pressing burner. This entire state needs better transportation. And whatever you're doing, you know, I've already told you, whatever you're doing, you got to come through Memphis, Doc. If you don't come through Memphis, we're going to have a problem, okay? Y'all got to come through Memphis, okay? We want to be in the middle of it. Okay, Mr. Chairman, that's it. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. And this has been a great discussion, and I'll give you the final word there, Representative Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the time and indulgence of the committee. You'll see this again. We keep working on it. You know, we'll be taking this off notice, like I said, but Chairman Towns is correct. Other communities are getting these federal dollars. They're getting these projects now. First round just went out. We're fortunate that Chattanooga, Nashville, Memphis received funds to study this. But, you know, studies aren't going to get our roads any less congested. So, you know, I really feel adamant that we need to have one person to really focus on this and a whole department and agency, not department, agency to kind of an office to focus on this. And so, you know, I agree with my colleague who's represents Shelby County that, you know, we maybe more than one person, but department will continue these conversations with them and hopefully advance this cause. And I appreciate your inclusion in those conversations, Mr. Chairman. With that, I'll take it off notice.
Okay, thank you. With that, House Bill 598 is taken off notice. Do I have a motion for adjournment? We are adjourned. Representative Powell, would you stand by for a second?
Good job. Good job.